Hi everybody, welcome to Dram Daddy Whiskey. I'm Dan, and tonight we are going to be trying out a whiskey that has gone through waves of being popular, being highly sought after, being not so popular, being hard to find, being easy to find. The whiskey we are trying tonight is Angel's Envy Finished Rye. Angel's Envy is put out by Louisville Spirits Group in Louisville, Kentucky. They're most well known for a Kentucky straight bourbon that's finished in port wine barrels. This, on the other hand, is a rye that is finished in Caribbean rum casks. But we really need to travel through the text on the bottle, actually, to get a good idea of what's really going on in here. Angel's Envy Finished Rye, and then it says Ryewhiskey finished in Caribbean Oh no. In Caribbean rum casks. It doesn't say it's a straight rye whiskey anywhere. If it said it was a straight rye whiskey or a blend of straight rye whiskeys, we would know that there was no whiskey in here that was younger than 2 years of age, and if it didn't specifically say an age statement on here, that minimum age would have to bump up to 4 years. But there's no mention on here of any straight whiskey at all, so we have no idea how old this is. 50% ABV, so it's 100 proof, handcrafted and bottled by Louisville Spirits Group in Louisville, Kentucky. So handcrafted and bottled. That probably means, almost certainly means, that it wasn't actually distilled and aged by the folks who own Angel's Envy. This is probably a sourced rye, especially because it doesn't say it's a Kentucky rye. So my understanding is that this is an MGP rye, and that's all but confirmed when you look at the little text seal here on the back. It says 95% rye whiskey, and we actually get a little description to that effect in this little booklet here too. Everything we do is grounded in whiskey tradition up to a certain point. While we respect the old ways, we're not afraid to improve on them. That's why our rye is unconventionally delicious. With a 95% rye mash bill, 95% rye MGP, it's aged in charred white oak barrels like other super premium ryes, blah, 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 blah. We finish it in vintage rum casks. This marries the already complex spiciness of the rye with the sweet, balanced flavors of rum and cognac. The only explicit reference to a finishing on this bottle is on the front right here, and in little parts like this where it says it's finished in a rum cask, but there's other references to different types of spirits that it tastes like cognac right there. And if we look at this label on the side here, it says you're holding one bottle from a very limited release. This rare blend starts with a 95% rye mash bill, MGP, most likely, and then it's finished in vintage cask, which takes the already complex spiciness of rye and balances it with the sweet flavors of bourbon, cognac, and rum. Enjoy, it might be the only chance you'll get. So there's these weird almost implications that this rye is finished in bourbon or cognac in addition to the rum, but it's not explicitly stated anywhere. I've never heard of this whiskey being finished in anything other than a rum cask. But it's left open enough in the bottle that I don't think we can definitively rule that out, even though I'm pretty sure it's just finished in a rum cask, and that maybe those references to cognac and bourbon are just references almost to flavor notes, but in a confusing way. Let's pour a little bit of this out to get ready to nose and taste it. I remember before I got really into whiskey appreciation, but I was into whiskey. It was something that was harder to find, a little bit more expensive. It was kind of held up as being something to be sought after. And over the years, it seems like it's gone a little bit back and forth in that regard. Right now, I think in the past year or so, in 2022, it's not been that hard to find. It kind of pops up in a whole lot of places. The pricing on this one is usually somewhere between like 70 and 100 bucks. Probably more in the midpoint of those things, around 90 I think is pretty common. It's a little more expensive, especially for a 100 proof rye. I mean, it is sourced, so that adds to the production cost. It's a rye, which is more expensive. It's then finished. So those are all reasons it's more expensive, but it's just looking at a 100 proof, probably an MGP rye finished in rum. Hard to say whether that's a good value or not, but can't really know until we nose it, taste it, and see what we think. Initially, I get bourbon notes, like vanilla, a little bit of caramel, and then that fades away really quickly, and it almost smells like vermouth. This smells very much like a Manhattan, actually. Some of the rye notes come through, some of those classic MGP 95.5 rye notes, where you're getting that sense of freshness, almost a mint, but it is definitely overshadowed, enveloped by what smells like vermouth. I don't smell rum on this at all. I really don't. It does smell like a wine finish or like a brandy finish almost. I'd say more like a wine finish. That's why I'm thinking vermouth more than like a cognac. Compared to when I first opened this, all I got was like I was smelling a Manhattan out of a glass. The rye notes are coming through a little bit more now, and I like that a lot better. It's more interesting than it was when I first opened it. Getting those vermouth notes coupled with the rye, this is actually getting a little bit more complex, and I really enjoy the nose on this now. But whiskey's for drinking, so let's give it a taste, see what we think. Oh wow, that is sweet. So sweet. Like maple or molasses on the front of the tongue. Quite a bit. This has gotten a lot more interesting since I first tasted it as well. Still maple on the front palate, and then it develops into more of an obvious rye on the back, and those vermouth notes kick in again. But this really does taste like if you had a really good Manhattan with black walnut bitters. That's exactly what this tastes like to me. I really like spirit forward cocktails. It should be pretty obvious because I drink whiskey neat all the time. So this to me, it tastes like a really, really well done Manhattan. Almost a nutty aftertaste, kind of mixed with the vermouth notes, is really good. The finish is lasting pretty long on this actually. I think this would be a pretty good whiskey to start the night with if you're looking for something sweet, and if you're looking really to just have one, maybe like while you're watching a movie or something like that, because it's like a cocktail, but a little bit stronger. The complexity is pretty nice. It is really, really sweet though. When I say it's like a cocktail, I mean it is like a mixed drink that's gonna increase the sweetness from the alcohol. If sweet notes in your whiskey are not your thing, then this whiskey is not for you. But if you don't mind having those sweet notes, as long as they're coupled with at least a little bit more complexity, or if you really like Manhattans and you don't mind sipping a whiskey neat, then I probably would recommend this. I think it's pretty good. So the whiskey in the bottle, what am I gonna say about this one? I do think it's really good, pretty good, really good. I wouldn't say it's great or fantastic or anything like that. So I'd say this is a solid 7.7, 7.8, depending on the night, but I'd probably put it somewhere in there. So we'll say, you know, a 7.7 just to be on the safer end of things, especially because when I first had it, it didn't taste as good as it seems to be tasting now. So who knows? Could be just because it's the first whiskey I had that I'm a little bit more hyped on it right now than I was initially. As far as the value goes, for a whiskey that's pretty good or really good, but not great, isn't barrel proof, and you're still gonna have to shell out 80 to 90 before tax, I would say the value on this is not particularly good. I'd probably give the overall presentation of this, you know, allocation, how easy it is to find the value, the grade on this thing, because it is getting easier to find though, B-. We're gonna go B-, because I do think it's really good, and I do understand that, you know, whiskey in general is getting more expensive, and these types of whiskeys are just gonna be more expensive. If you wanna get a finished rye, you're gonna pay for it, especially if you're getting it from a place that's sourcing it. I do wish it was cheaper though. I feel like a broken record saying that with the past few reviews I've been doing, but it's the truth. If you've had this, I would like to know what you think about it. If it's hard to find, if you think it's worth the value, leave a comment below. Please subscribe if you've been enjoying these videos, or if you want to see what my next ones are. All that stuff helps me out a lot. I hope this review helped you out a bit, either in convincing you to buy it or convincing you to avoid it. Either way, let us know. Thanks for watching, and until next time, cheers.